Yo, it's TheGIBBYNATR. In this video I'm going to be teaching you how to win more 1v1 gunfights in Call of Duty Blackout. This is going to help you win more solo games, and you can also transition these skills over into quads and duos and get more wins over there. But in this video I'm going to be covering the ideal loot that you want, the positioning that you need to get, and then I'm going to go through some gunfight techniques and just movement techniques that are going to allow you to win more gunfights. Before we get into the tips and tricks, let me know how many wins you have down below in the comments section. After playing the game for a week, I currently have 35 wins. I'm absolutely loving the mode and I can't wait to just keep on getting better and better. I will definitely be releasing more tips and tricks as the cycle of this game goes on, as the life goes on, because I'm going to be developing myself and getting better at the game and learning new tips and tricks that I can share with you. So if you don't want to miss out on those tips and tricks, be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you can stay updated with them. Right, so getting into the tips and tricks, the first thing that I'm going to cover is the ideal loot that you want in your inventory. So the first thing I'm going to focus on is the equipment that you want. So the best equipment in my opinion is the cluster grenade. This thing is so underrated, and honestly you can actually find cluster grenades so frequently throughout the map. Basically every person you kill will have a cluster grenade, and you can literally loot every single building and get them, so there's no excuses for not having cluster grenades. And these things are so OP. So they actually blow up twice, and the second explosion is a massive one with multiple projectiles, meaning that you can cover a large area with damage. This means that if you're in a 1v1 situation and someone is in a position that you really dislike and you can't really see them, you don't have a good line of sight on them, you can just chuck one of these grenades in their general direction and you can really put pressure on them and drive them out of their spot that they're currently just sitting in waiting for you to come to them. You can push them out into the open, allowing you to get an easy line of sight on them and just finish them off. I've done this plenty of times, and the thing is with this grenade is it is so OP that even just throwing a grenade in the general direction of a person will take them out and kill them. And I believe at this point that the body armor doesn't actually protect you from grenades, so you can do a lot of damage to these people without even having to take their body armor off. So they are very useful indeed. And sticking to equipment, my next favorite equipment is actually the sensor dart. This thing is really good because obviously when you're in that final 1v1, it means like if you don't know where they are, a kid could be camping in a bush, they could just be lying down in grass. You can put this sensor dart down and you can figure out exactly where they are. You can get yourself in a nice little position that's going to give you the advantage over them, and when they come to you, you can just pick them off eventually when the storm closes. It is such a good equipment, and it's really going to help you win those 1v1s because it just gives you such a massive advantage knowing where the other person is when they don't know where you are. And especially if you pair that up with having a silenced weapon, they're literally going to have no idea where you are and you can easily pick them off without them even shooting you. The next piece of equipment that I recommend you try and get is the grapple hook. These and the sensor darts are really frequent as well, so you shouldn't have an issue with finding these in the game. It's more of an issue of actually remembering to use them. They are so helpful, and when you do actually start implementing them into your game style, you can really start to dominate lobbies. So in 1v1s, the grapple hook is so OP because it can allow you to get up onto buildings and people won't expect you to be on buildings. It can also be really helpful if you've accidentally shown yourself a bit too much, you've been sniped, they've dealt a lot of damage to you, and you can easily just get away with that grapple hook by firing it at the ground, firing it at a tree, and it can just get you out of there, allowing you to regenerate your health and giving you a better chance at winning that gunfight. You can also use it to do some really sneaky rushing because people won't expect you in this game mode to be rushing them, especially in a 1v1 situation right at the end of the game. You can easily just really put pressure on people with this grapple hook and they will not expect it. You'll throw them off and hopefully win the gunfight because they just won't be expecting you, so you can easily just get that win. Concussion and 9-bang grenades are also great equipments to have in your inventory if you don't find any of the other things I've just listed. As I said, if you know there's someone in a general area, you can just throw one of these at them. It will completely white out their screen. It won't allow them to shoot. They won't be able to aim. They won't be able to move. So you can just come along and easily kill them. Even if you can't see them, they're too far away or something, or they're just behind in a building. If you stun them, it's really going to scare them. If you scare someone, the chances are their accuracy is going to be a bit shaky. They're going to get nervous. They're going to do stupid plays. So you can really put that pressure on them and easily get the win again. The next thing you want to focus on loot wise is the weapons that you have. Now, I love to run an assault rifle and a sniper. For me, it doesn't really matter which one, but my favourite assault rifles at the minute are the Vapor, the ICR, the KM57 and the Rampart, which is literally all of them, and even the Maddox. Literally, I really enjoy assault rifles in this game. It doesn't matter which one I have, I find that they're really consistent. I always have good accuracy with them, and I can deal a lot of damage onto people. I don't recommend SMGs purely because of the fact of how big the map is, and you can only really use those SMGs in close quarters situations. And the assault rifles, especially the Vapor and the Maddox, they already have a really high fire rate, so you can be in gunfights at long range with them, and you can also outgun people with SMGs up close. So I definitely recommend you using assault rifles over SMGs. The only SMG that I would slightly recommend maybe is the Cordite, just because that gun has a lot of ammo. With extended mags, you can get 90 bullets per magazine, which means you can kind of engage in long range gunfights because you can just spray it. But other than that, I don't really recommend the SMGs. For your secondary weapon, ideally I would want you to have a sniper, because snipers are so goddamn good, especially with a sniper scope on. They're really useful. Even if you're bad at sniping, you can just use a sniper scope to scout out where the enemies are, and then from there you can decide where you want to push and where you want to position yourself. But for me, snipers, they are just the ultimate thing for getting wins, because if you can land some easy headshots on people and just find, with the scope, you can just find people camping, easily line up headshots. You can just eliminate them with one bullet if you're lining up headshots. And if you shoot them in the body, you're dealing a massive amount of damage, which allows you to switch to your assault rifle, and then you can just ping them across the map with 1 or 2 bullets and then take them out of the game. Especially when you're in the last couple, a sniper is very important, especially if you don't know where the people are, because you can use that scope to just find out where they are. And hopefully just because most people in that 1v1, they're always behind some type of cover, and with the sniper you can just see their tiny little arms popping out. You can see a foot, or you can see a head just peeking, and that will literally tell you exactly where they are, so you can figure out a game plan to go and push them and get that win. The attachments that you use on your weapons are mostly personal preference, but I would definitely recommend you get extended mags for all of your weapons and stock. Whenever you see a stock, definitely pick that up. It's a very underrated attachment, and it's one that I think you should always be trying to get. Extended mags obviously gives you extra bullets, allowing you to kind of you have that little fallback, that insurance. If you do miss some shots, you still have a lot more in your magazine to follow through and get some of those kills. Stock is a very underrated attachment because you can strafe side to side whilst in gunfights, because stock allows you to move faster whilst you're aiming down your sights. What this is going to do is just make you a slightly harder target to hit, meaning that the enemy is less likely to kill you. That gives you a massive advantage in gunfights when it comes to 1v1s, and should enable you to get plenty more wins just by implementing that into your playstyle. Going back to the equipment for a second, I actually forgot to mention that the smoke grenades are quite handy. A lot of people just think, what is the point in this, it's not that good. But you can really use these to your advantage. You can either use them as a decoy, or you can use them to help you whilst healing. So I like to use them as a decoy quite a lot, where you just throw them into a random part of the map where you know the enemy is not, so you don't cover them. And that will obviously show to the enemy. They'll see this massive cloud of smoke and they'll be like, yo, that person must be over there. It will really distract them, and that'll allow you to push in onto them from a direction that they're not expecting and easily just catch them off guard. Smoke grenades are also great when you need to heal. You can just throw the smoke down, go into the cloud of smoke and kind of just move side to side, so you're dodging bullets at the same time, regenerate your health, and then come out of the smoke in a position different to the place that you went in, and then gun the kids down. Very smart tactic to use, and it's helped me out a lot of the time. The next loot items you should always try to have are trauma kits and at least some type of body armor. Now, trauma kits actually increase your maximum health by 50 points, taking it up to a grand total of 200. This means that you can actually soak up 33% more damage than you normally would. So that's great, because you're going to be able to survive for 33% longer than you normally would in gunfights. So that's going to give you that extra bit of time to actually be able to hit more shots on the enemy and actually kill them. So if your accuracy goes a little bit shaky, you've got that insurance, that fallback of time that you can rely on to actually get that kill. And also the body armor, I would recommend either level 2 or level 3, but obviously level 3 is the rarest and you are pretty unlikely to find that. Level 2 is also quite rare, but you are much more likely to find that. And then level 1, you can pretty much find that everywhere. So if worst comes to worst, you can actually just go with the level 1 body armor, and that's just going to allow you to soak up a few extra bullets, give you a bit more time in gunfights to actually be able to hit off your shots, and to counteract people using body armor, shoot them in the head. And if you do get a headshot on them, it actually means that you can pick up their armor afterwards, but that's just for level 1 and level 2 because level 3 actually does protect your head. The final thing to do with loot is the consumables that you pick up. So by consumables, I mean the perks that you can activate. I want you to save up the stealth ones like Dead Silence and Awareness, because in the final battle these are really going to help you when it comes to sound whoring the enemy and when it comes to them trying to sound whore you. If you have Dead Silence on, there's no chance they're going to hear you, and when you have Awareness on, those footsteps are going to be so loud, it's going to allow you to identify exactly where the enemy is so that you can push them and when they're not expecting it. Especially if you combine this with crouch walking, they won't be able to hear you at all and you can easily throw them off and get easy kills. Two other great perks are Skulker and Paranoia. Skulker actually allows you to move faster whilst crouched, which is great because when you're crouched you make barely any noise, so it's essentially like having Dead Silence, which is great, and it also makes you a harder target to hit, so it's just like doubly great. And Paranoia actually makes a noise when people are aiming at you, so you can tell whether someone's aiming at you because your screen's going to make a noise at you, and then you can react on that and like slide away, jump away, and kind of just look in the general areas where you think there could be someone, and that's really going to help you out, because if you don't know where they are and they're just aiming on you, you're 100% dead. But Paranoia gives you that extra little last chance to try and get your way out of that danger zone and try and get yourself to safety. Moving on to the next category of tips and tricks, we have positioning. Now, it's very important to take the high ground in Battle Royale games, and this is very true for Blackout as well, because when you're at the high ground, you actually have a great field of view of the rest of the map, allowing you to easily spot enemies that are just running away from the storm into the zone. So you want to be getting into the buildings or the mountains that are in the zone, and this is just going to give you a great view of the enemy. And you're also going to have a great view of their head, allowing you to pick off nice little headshots. And if you think about it, when you're in the perspective of someone at the bottom of a hill or the bottom of a building, you can only you don't tend to look up, you tend to look straight in front of you. So if you're looking straight in front of you whilst you're walking up a hill, you're just looking at like a load of grass and rocks and stuff and trees. But when you're at the top of the hill and you're looking down, you can see everything. So you're at such an advantage just by simply taking the high ground. So that's something you should always keep in mind and try to obtain that high ground to get the advantage over your enemy. Another important thing about your positioning is that you always have cover. Now in Blackout you can't build, it's not like Fortnite, so you can't just build up a barrier in front of you and the enemy to stop you from getting shot. You have to have that that's already made into the map. So for example, you can have rocks, or you can have like air conditioning units on the top of buildings, you can have vehicles, and that's a great tip. If you have the truck, you can easily just park that up at the top of a mountain and just use it as a head glitch to help you out. And you can easily just use that as cover. You can lie down in the back of it to regenerate your health, and it's just such a great little thing that you can use, and you can move that around as the zone moves to really help you out. But as I say, like, it's always just making sure you have that cover. You do not want to be out in the open, because if you're out in the open and someone's got cover, you're 100% dying. Unless that person's got really bad accuracy and you've got good accuracy, you're just 100% dead. So always keep it in mind, what do I have to cover me from fire? So you want to be looking at trees, rocks, buildings, walls, vehicles, just anything you can use to help you and give you an advantage over the enemy. If the final safe zone is in a city or just like a place where there's lots of buildings, I always recommend climbing to the top of the buildings. This is why I recommend you have the grapple hook as your equipment, because people do not expect you to be on top of buildings, especially ones that aren't that high. But in normal Call of Duties you wouldn't be able to climb them, because people don't expect that. In Black Ops 4 you can climb really high, so just attempt to climb on top of these buildings, even if you don't have a grapple hook, because you'll be surprised at the height of buildings that you can climb on top of. And just having that height advantage again, it's going to help you out. And when you can just hear people walking down at the bottom of you, you can easily just crouch walk along to where that person is and just pop them off in the head and get a really nice fast kill on them. Before we move on to like gunfight techniques and stuff, I just want to emphasize how important positioning is. Blackout is essentially just the battle for the most advantageous positioning, so just figure out good positions for you and you should be set for getting those victories. Moving into the final category of tips and tricks, we have gunfight techniques and then just like general movement techniques. So the first thing for just like your gunfight techniques, I want you to be jump shotting a lot more than you would in normal Call of Duty. If you're someone that wouldn't normally jump shot in multiplayer, I want you to learn now. So you can do this by using the stick and move setting if you don't have a scuff controller, or you can play claw. You can just like Google a tutorial of it. But yeah, I want you to play so that you can easily jump shot, because jump shotting in a 1v1 gunfight is huge in Black Ops 4, because you can jump so high that if someone's shooting you in the like the lower chest, just like in the abdominal region, you can easily jump over their bullets. You can literally jump as high as someone's head in this game. So if you're jumping when they're shooting you in the chest, they're literally just going to be shooting between your legs, just shooting thin air. So you can land your shots off and they'll just be hitting nothing. And it'll also throw the enemy's aim assist off, just making you such a hard target to hit. And that is really going to give you the advantage in 1v1 gunfights. The next thing to do is strafing. I mentioned this before. This is why I want you to have stocks. If you don't know what strafing is, it's where you move left and right whilst you're in gunfights. This is going to make you a hard target to hit. It's going to make the aim assist and the hit registration a bit dodgy, especially if you pair it up with Skullcab, which is that perk that enables you to move faster whilst being crouched. If you have that and you need to reload, for example, you can move left and right so fast that the enemy literally won't be able to hit you. So yeah, it's a very good one to use. And also, like, if you have an SMG and you're up close to someone, use Skullcad to strafe left and right and they will never touch you, I can assure you of that. The next tip is to just try and line up headshots. I know if it's a ridiculously long range, going for headshots without a sniper is pretty difficult, but this is why I recommend having a sniper, because with a sniper scope, lining up headshots is pretty much a piece of cake once you get your accuracy on point and once you figure out the bullet drop and so on. So just try and like practice at sniping. You can do that in private matches, and then you can just get so good at lining up these headshots that you can just take people out in one shot. And being able to do that is honestly the best thing you can possibly do, especially when the enemy is wearing body armor, because body armor doesn't protect your head unless you're wearing level 3 body armor. So going for headshots on people wearing those level 1 and level 2 is very good. You're going to be able to absolutely melt them, and you can actually pick that body armor up yourself if you want to. As well as strafing, pretty much all of the time you want to just be moving non-stop. Even if it is just little movements backwards and forwards, left and right, it is going to make you a much harder target to hit than someone just standing dead still. The people that stand still are the people that get sniped, and it's honestly the most annoying thing, getting sniped when you're in the final 2 people in that 1v1. So just make sure you're constantly moving. I wouldn't recommend like jumping in Fortnite. Like the kind of go-to thing is to constantly jump, because obviously that makes you a harder target. But in Call of Duty, if you're jumping and you're literally just going to like bait yourself out to the enemy. If they don't know where you are and you're just jumping up and down, they're easily going to see you and they're going to know where you are. So that's not a very smart move, because you're pretty much just going to kill yourself. The next movement technique is to just crouch walk everywhere. I have mentioned this, but crouch walking virtually makes your footsteps silent. If you're crouch walking up to someone that doesn't know you're there, they're never going to hear you unless they have their Astros on turned to the max volume and they're really focusing on the sound. They are never going to hear you. So it's very smart to just crouch walk up on people. Even if you can hear them, you want to be crouch walking, because if they're close enough for you to hear them, you want to be crouch walking so they don't hear you. Very smart thing to do. I do it a lot and really throw my enemies off guard. The final tip that I just want to touch on is the sensitivity that you use. Now, I'm a player that normally uses a very high sensitivity. In the normal multiplayer, I use a 10 sensitivity, but for Blackout, it is so vital that you're not missing shots. And plus, in Blackout, most of the gunfights are very long range. So with a high sensitivity, a tiny little movement on your controller is going to be a massive movement to your actual character at long range. So using a low sensitivity is really going to help you out in those gunfights. But this is an optional thing. If you think you can control your high sensitivity, go ahead and use it. I use a high sensitivity, but I think if I used a lower one, I would probably do slightly better and be more consistent with my accuracy. But I'm just going to keep grinding with my high sensitivity and literally just become a god with it, because eventually you're just going to get used to it and you will figure it out. It might take a bit longer, but getting used to a high sensitivity, in my opinion, is a much much better thing than getting used to a low sensitivity. I'm all about pushing myself as a player, and ideally I want to work my way up to using max sensitivity, because that is honestly the best sensitivity to be using if you can control it. But yo, if you found these tips helpful, definitely drop a like on the video, it'd be much appreciated. These take a long time to kind of compile and figure out. If you want to see more tips and tricks just like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Obviously I'm going to be like adapting as a player and becoming better myself, so I'm going to be learning more tips and tricks, so I'll definitely be sure to share you with them once I learn them. But yeah, it's been the TheGIBBYNATR. Be sure to turn post notifications on so you don't miss those videos, and I'll see you in the next video, lads. Peace.